This is Antithesis, your underground academic radio where the focus is on you. For those that are in the thick of it today, we know what you are living through. And for those that chose or were forced onto a different path, we know what it costs. We're here to be your companion and to help you reorient your compass a bit, to help make sense of it all. Thanks for being here. The opinions expressed here are my own and do not reflect those of my employer or any entity professionally affiliated with me. Topics in these podcasts will be familiar to many, if not all, within the academic and scientific communities, within institutions, industries, and employers of all kinds. Some of these topics may be of a highly sensitive nature to certain listeners, particularly those that have experienced or are experiencing them, and could trigger some emotions that are upsetting or distressing. I've created this space to speak openly about these topics with the broader goal of helping individuals cope, adjust, and adapt constructively to the many challenges at hand. With that said, thank you for joining me. Antithesis, Episode 15, Sacrifice. Hello everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for today's episode. As I've mentioned a couple times in past episodes, I grew up on a dairy farm, and the summer before my high school freshman year, my family moved to the small rural community that was nearby, where our community school was based and other family members, grandparents, aunts, uncles, and cousins lived. Though I continued to work on the farm here and there, I also pursued other projects and interests because after moving, I had simpler access to some resources, and I was still too young for a driver's license. Just reflecting on this, we're only talking a distance of 7.1 miles from our farm to this town. And back then, my hometown had a population of 580. By the time I left for college, it had ticked up to 595 residents. But even with these meager numbers of distance and population, it still felt a world apart. And as I say the following as sort of a prologue for this episode, I don't think it matters what you do or where you live in the world. When it comes to access, this is where we're talking about many topics, but particularly when it comes to equity and where disparities arise and equity slides. You can't choose where you're born. You can't choose the environment of your upbringing. You can't choose how steep that very initial slope is for you to make the first advancements in your life that eventually could be so definitive towards what could or would be a profession or career, because you have no control over any of these initial conditions. All you can do, and in the most idealistic sense, is to somehow, some way choose to show up and give everything you have available to pursue your own growth. The number of factors that play into this are beyond counting, and how each of them impact each other and the beholder that is undergoing the experience make it an impossible proposition to truly comprehend what every one of us goes through and faces at each and every step of our lives. But my point here is that it starts for each of us from the very beginning. The times we face today, as we think about access to resources and opportunities, I ask myself this question: why is it today that I felt as if what we are seeing now, and honestly have been for years, was coming back then? It was so prescient to me. The disdain for simply going to school, especially for those undergoing the experience in secondary or high schools in America, was never really surprising to me. The fact that it's seemingly, for most young people, the first to grind the experience under the watch of senior monitors and managers, the educators, otherwise known as teachers, when our wherewithal is really first tested. Their limits are pushed and hopefully expanded to students, and are meant to grow in their intellectual capacity, coming to that first educational conclusion as their brains are not even close to yet being fully developed. But the refrain back then, as I'm sure it is today for too many junior high and high school students, is that it's boring. And this is where the chasm starts to form. And I'm neither that much of a purist nor optimist. I know that not all teachers are great, and the same goes for parents as well, along with every other factor that these extremely impactful initial conditions comprise. And what we are facing today all starts there, every little bit of it. And from there arises the question: how did this frustration for schooling, for so many, too many, transfer to an utter disdain for education, and consequently the educated? There are so many discussions, theories, reports. I'm not even bothering to look this topic up or even provide citations to what I know are going to be hundreds or more of research and opinion pieces on this topic. But I'm going to offer just one major thought, a prime idea of what I saw that others expressed and what I experienced and felt on my own back in the day. Too often, people question their own abilities, but worse, they question their own capabilities to learn and consequently to grow right from the start. And what I recall hearing more than once was this lack of capabilities was essentially ascribed to some kind of organic nature of someone not being smart. It's akin to the "I'm not good at math" sentiment that is so common, so recurring, and it's on meme level. It's the first thing you hear when someone dings their own abilities, and it clearly has social and popular currency because you hear those words in movies and TV shows almost as a positive. I just don't like math. I'm not good at math. It irritates me to no end because it begs this deeper societal problem. And when you're already down and closed off to possibilities of learning, then where is it you can go from there? What does this say about how you value knowledge in and of itself? And from there, does this have a degrading impact on merely remaining open to new ideas, unique points of view, or all the way down to the baseline, having willingness to accept scientific facts as conveyed by actual scientists? How much farther does this extend to individuals than permitting themselves to align with whatever concept or premise that gives them the most satisfaction? Either because it is truly in their own self interest, or it is simply more convenient because they hear someone that had ascribed themselves the authority worthwhile to share their opinion. And it is here where misinformation is rife and harmful. Watching TV and seeing the absolute garbage that is being hawked in the form of supplements and treatments and health ads. Of course, none of them FDA approved. We're talking billions and billions and billions of dollars. But therein lies the stark observation that a good portion of the US population could care less about what the Food and Drug Administration has approved. As we drill down a little bit further into the psychology of this and even farther from reasonable discourse, when someone's self-interest is nothing but destruction, to not accept knowledge, to destroy norms, and even deny their own needs, and this is where, from the earliest inklings of growth self-suppression, that finding kinship with others in some kind of forum, today whether it's something labeled as entertainment or merely an easily accessible peer group, then further reinforces self-inflicted wounding, fostering self-rebuke in the form of denying true independent thought, analysis, reflection, and unbiased informed deliberation. The sacrifice of control is the ultimate in disempowerment. The unwillingness to yield a viewpoint even momentarily, to pause dispassionately, and consider authentic information from reliable, trusted sources, but it is the latter, the trusted sources, that desperately need some work. I know my tiny rural school afforded me every opportunity it could to achieve a modicum of responsibility, education, and opportunities for extracurricular activities. I also admit fully, my years pre-college were rapid fire. At a small school, I was able to participate in every activity I wanted and was able to excel at a number of these interests, music being one of them, as I mentioned in the prior Passion episode. But the learning component was a challenge for me, and not because I had a lot of difficulties, but my challenges were more concerning how to successfully integrate various information sets in a rapid-fire way. My high school offered a few advanced placement topics at the end of my time there, and it gave me a taste of where I was lacking, but also where I focused so much of my time and effort, achieving the broadest and deeper overall experience I could. I passed the classes just fine, but my scores on the 3 AP exams I took were nothing to write home about, nor anything that garnered me any early university credits. I just never got my feet underneath me well enough prior to my undergraduate studies to, for lack of a better word, really to trust myself and my own learning, and definitely learning very quickly whether professors that were instructing science courses could be trusted either. This will be on the exam, and it wasn't. This won't be on the exam, and it was. This was an extreme confidence issue for me, and more to the root of the problem. An issue with not having the precise experience that would have prepared me better for my initial experience at the large undergraduate university I attended. Remember the population of my hometown when I left for college that I mentioned earlier? 595. The size of one of my first introductory classes, it was in sociology namely, had 600 students. It was so mind-twisting, so disorienting to be sitting among the population size of my hometown. But with that aside, I'll never forget the professor, Dr. Gary Sandifer, personally inviting every student to his office hours and tantalizing every student to do so with a few bonus points. That blew my mind. And don't think that many professors not just invited but openly welcomed students to visit their offices. Not a single one ever did, especially professors of the class the size of 600. This was a formative example for me that I always remembered, and for a kid from a small rural town, it was this simple show of interest and inclusiveness that helped me hold up and inspire me to grind this experience out. And it was nauseating every day, all the way until my junior year or so. Once I finally started to become better acclimated to the roller coaster, my fear was tangible and at times paralyzing. But I took increasingly complex courses out of nothing but pure pride, maybe a measure of stupidity, joined the honors track and committed myself by hook or by crook to complete my studies in 4 years. And no, I'm not going to state my GPA here, but it wasn't a 4.0, not even close. But the whole experience had an indelible impact on me, and it emblazoned in my mind the level to which strategic choices and sacrifice was required to get on in that space. With this narrative in mind, I go back to the very beginning, and I wonder how similar your beginning might have been. I've said it before in a prior episode about wanting control, or more in the form of wanting desperately to understand how things in the world around me and in myself worked. No joke. I was only a child when part of this interest was sparked off, and religion was actually a notable part of it. To put it simply, it started in the form of me asking a lot of questions, And what I was seeing and hearing and exposure to the natural world around me also had a really big impact on my motivations. While many of these features were tangible and things I had gathered interest, the drive to pursue more in knowledge and experience, to the point of being extremely uncomfortable and fearful throughout years of the trials and tribulations as I first started my higher education, followed by pursuing it as a vocation. So many intangibles also, and just too many to list. But I know part of me was driven to do it to prove a point about my hometown, where I'm from, because that's an irrefutable part of me to show of what we're capable, including those that didn't choose that same path from where I grew up. And as I reflect on this further, the divide that separates this type of pursuit and those that choose it from others that choose not to do so, it's a choice. And making this choice makes one no more special than the other. But the differences that follow are still a crux that must be addressed and overcome. And what is needed is an acknowledgement of the sacrifice it takes to stay or go, the sacrifice it takes to understand oneself and to understand and respect one another and our choices. And failure to pursue this mutual understanding of each other continues to doom us. An incoherence between all of what science and technology and medicine has brought forth, including the countless lives saved and sustained every single second, paired with such a forceful rebuke of what it actually takes to get there. I acknowledge that this isn't a majority of folks that feel this way and voice such contempt. Nevertheless, it's too many. If you're an academic, if you're a scientist, you need to accept your sacrifice. And you need to try to no less than understand and accept the sacrifices of those who chose pursuits that did not include higher education. If you are not an academic, if you are not a scientist, you need to accept your sacrifice. And you need to try to no less than understand and accept the sacrifices of those who chose a pursuit of higher education, research, and otherwise. For those of you that have tuned into this series, I'm hopeful it is shedding light on what might be a total unknown for some of you. And as we pull back the curtain, it may be becoming clearer what choosing this world and the path that leads to it actually means. Academia and academic institutions are always portrayed in the form and fashion of a tower of ivory. Well, folks, let's be straight. Most of that tower ain't ivory. And I believe most people that have contributed their blood, sweat, and tears to its cause would absolutely agree. With the disparity today between people that embrace science, technology, and other advancements, and those that for a variety of reasons shun the people and processes from whence they came, I think it mirrors much of the same struggles and feelings I had at times as I tried to push my own career forward in an environment that was neither the friendliest nor the most constructive. How easy was this and how privileged did I feel as I progressed further, but at times felt as if I was sinking deeper into academia? How did I feel? For more mornings than not, setting my alarm earlier than 4 a.m. to supersede my brain, naturally waking up at 4:30 a.m. in a cold sweat, jumping in a hot shower to calm my brain down, start making plans to essentially meditate on the fact that my life was not going to end, and convince my adrenal glands that while I was being chased by some incredibly difficult situations and being subjected to gaslighting, there was no lion or bear that was going to eat me at that moment. And here we are now. It's not just disagreeable senior fellow faculty folks, competitors, publisher rejections, funding agency denials. It's the growing swath of the American public that simply refuses to trust. Worse, is starkly opposed to reason, and for some, unwilling to even listen. One of a few primary drivers of my pursuit of an academic and research career was to listen and be cognizant of the necessity of clear and constructive communication with our stakeholders. And this meant our students, from every walk of life, from every corner of the globe. I believe that my indelible pursuit of this principle led to consternation and blockades in the very place in which it should have been housed. And without question, the number of academics that faced and those that continue to face these same type of internal struggles is no way small, and it's so very real. With the divide ever growing between education and those that have chosen to be its facilitators, and a large contingent of our citizens, it begs a desperate need for unity between all of those in academia, the sciences, and beyond. And this means the most senior scholars working harder to foster and support not just their younger colleagues, but everyone in their stead, students and beyond. And it means universities, colleges, and their faculties adopting new approaches and practices to foster respect and understanding with their communities. This doesn't just mean lecturing. This means listening to promote the type of inclusiveness and mission and goal that anyone from communities large and small should have for growth, success, and sustainability, and chances for new opportunities, large and small. Today, the United States and the world requires another whole level of sacrifice, right down to the roots. And this sacrifice lies with every single one of us, beginning to understand each other. And with that, thanks so much for joining me today. And I hope you look forward to our next episode that will be released in a week's time. And no matter on which platform you heard today's episode, if you enjoyed it and want to hear more, please subscribe, follow, like, and share. And set your notifications to let you know that next fresh episode is ready for you to dig in. All of you, keep building up your courage, hang in there, and keep your head up. We'll talk to you again soon. Continuing 30 years of experience with stories in and beyond the academic realm, Antithesis is a podcast that will take these perspectives and philosophies and pull them, along with you, the student, the researcher, the innovator, the educator, into the sunlight. Join us for some firsthand experiences, insights from inside and outside academia, and perspectives that are aimed at redefining the conventions of academia and your training, with the aim of helping you reorient your compass and strengthen you on your journey forward, or to recover and grow from those times past. We'd love to have you follow us and tune in weekly. If you have a topic you'd like discussed or a challenge you are facing you want to share, email us at allsystemsgo@gmail.com. That is ALLSYST3MSGO@gmail.com.